Hello and welcome to the Moonshots briefings. I'm your co-host, Mike Parsons, and as usual, I'm joined by the man with a plan, Mr. Chad Owen himself.
Hey, Mike, how are things in Sydney this fine morning?
They are sunny. Mate, I have my enormous cup of coffee, so I think I'm ready for the day. You're at the end of your day. How's it been in Brooklyn?
Oh, pretty good. We've had some schizophrenic weather here. I am waiting for spring, um, yeah, with bated breath.
Are we close to spring? Are there little signs of spring joining us?
Yeah, I think the daffodils and tulips will be popping out of the ground here pretty soon. So that's usually the announcement of spring here.
Nice one. Nice one. Now, listen, we've got so much to chat about this morning. There's a lot going on in the world of innovation. We're going to talk about Elon Musk. We're going to talk about Jeff Bezos. We're going to talk about our adventures in Bucharest. But, dude, there's only one thing to be talking about in the world of innovation, in technology, in the world of design thinking, and that has to start with Mr. Zuckerberg, right?
Yeah, there seems to be a strange occurrence when we publish episodes every now and then.
What is it? Because we did a show on Travis Kalanick from Uber, and literally within hours of recording and publishing the show, he stepped down as CEO, and we published a show on Mark Zuckerberg. Um, and then this enormous scandal with Cambridge Analytica has just kind of exploded, and it's not going away, is it?
No, no, and I think it's having rippling effects across the entire industry, both
Oh yeah.
in terms of financial performance, but also just everyone taking a look at what we've given these giant tech companies and what they have done knowingly or unknowingly, nefariously or in good faith.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting debate that I've seen crop up in the last week or two since that story broke.
Does it surprise you how the outrage that we're seeing? Because we've seen the delete Facebook
I
campaign,
want there
which
to be
has,
more.
but seriously, does it surprise you? Because it seems to me, my sense of it is part of the almost, if you will, the addiction people have to Facebook. It seems like people are, I don't know how to say this. It's almost they're channeling like their dependency on Facebook is being channeled into this outrage. It seems to have really blown up, and you know, I'm actually a little surprised how much this is outraging people. I'm not saying that it's not wrong. What I'm just saying is I'm surprised at the reaction and how strong it is.
I'm not. I think people should be more outraged than they are. I mean,
Yeah.
again, this is getting kind of into my own personal opinions, but I'm not on social media precisely for many of the reasons people are just now understanding.
Waking up to, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So here's the interesting thing. I think at the heart, everyone knows, everyone listening to the show knows about the scandal. So we're not going to rehash that. But I think there's two big things that strike me is that a third party using Facebook that legitimately collected all of this data, it seems so easy for them to turn around and then export that data to other people. That seems to me like, when you really reflect on this, the fact that the data is so freely exportable out of the platform, that seems like a huge point of concern. The
And being
second thing,
able
and I
to
don't,
scoop up data of friends of friends,
right
that they
now,
had lost
yeah,
control of the controls of the what bots and what APIs were
right.
giving and not giving. And I think, I don't know if this is a good defense on Zuckerberg's part, but he's saying, if you'd asked me in 2004 when I started Facebook, if I knew that I would be in charge of a product that had billions of users and trillions and trillions of data points on people, like, of course I wouldn't, of course
Yeah.
I would never even imagine it, but it still doesn't take away his and Facebook's responsibility to live up to the promise that they've made to their users. And I think
Absolutely.
ultimately that's what people are going to have to weigh is, um, you know,
Can they trust these organizations with their
exactly,
data,
exactly,
right? So here, I think to Facebook's defense, in 2012 they did change this policy that you can't see the data from friends of friends. So they did do that. However, what was worse is they actually were aware of Cambridge Analytica doing this kind of stuff. So they actually warned them and told them to delete all the data. And there's another third party related to Cambridge Analytica, this Hogan guy that was involved in it all, who had the original app that got the data. But here's the crazy thing: after giving them instructions to delete the data, they never audited them to see if they actually did it. And
right.
they openly just said, yeah, we deleted it, but they didn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
And so that for me is the real failure, because they can't claim, oh, we didn't realize that people were doing this with our data. They knew full well. And what's really interesting now, I'm just looking today, Facebook stock shaved off close to 5% in value. And over the last, oh my gosh, I mean, looking at this, in the last 12 days, it's down from a stock price of 183, it's down to 152. So it's shaved 30 points. So it's well in excess of 10% of their market value has disappeared. I thought, another thing about it, Chad, I thought they were very slow in confronting this. It took Zuckerberg 5 days to get in front of the cameras.
Yeah, but I'm not surprised. To me, that just shows how serious of a breach of confidence it was. And again, Zuckerberg's uncomfortableness in situations like this. I think this is where his, tech founder in a dorm room origins really, really comes through.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite have that kind of managerial poise of someone like a Fred Smith or a Jeff Bezos that cut their teeth in the business worlds, before they were running these giant companies.
Yeah, and as we said on the show, he's an incredibly young guy. He is surrounded by good people. Not super impressed by how Sheryl Sandberg has handled this process either. And as a fallout to this, there's a new survey that was done that came out yesterday, and is showing a massive decline in trust in Facebook amongst Americans. So, things are getting very real for Facebook now. I wanted to ask you, with the benefit of hindsight, what are we learning here? Like, if we're entrepreneurs and we're actually capturing the private information of users, Chad, what do you think our listeners can learn from this? Like, what do we take out of this?
I don't know. The question I'm asking is like, can you innovate too much? And to say that, I think in a better way, it's like, can you innovate beyond your company, your leadership's ability to manage that innovation? And that's a really interesting thought experiment for me. Of course, I don't think you can innovate too much, but I think for a particular organization, I think maybe you can. And maybe that's what we've seen here is that, Facebook's product and service is so great and spread so wide and far and grew so big that they weren't able to kind of catch up and manage it and really understand the responsibility that they had created when they created the product.
Building on that, maybe it's a question of be careful what you wish for. Every startup wants Facebook-like scale, right?
Right.
But okay, you want scale? Here you go. And then it's like, whoa, and it's sort of like in a slow, painful death of 1,000 cuts, Facebook is realizing just the sheer magnitude of the responsibility that they have.
Yeah, exactly.
And it also, if we were to put this on a scale of innovation fails, whilst as serious as this is, I think what we saw at Uber was of a next order of magnitude, don't you think? Like, if you think about what we heard about the way things were going at Uber, if this was a mild dose of the Wild West at Facebook. I mean, we had complete outlaws and gunslinging cowboys at Uber, right?
Yeah, more blatantly flaunting the legality of what they were doing. But I think ultimately the impact of 50 million psychographic profiles that were used to arguably manipulate people, and I still think that's a pretty serious thing that's going to weigh on Facebook's conscience
Yeah,
going forward.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. The other thing that has come up recently is that if we look at there's sort of a rough patch for tech right now. So we got Facebook having some challenges. Obviously, we had Uber and their challenges. But I think the other big news that came out recently is that the SEC is now filing a charge of massive fraud on Elizabeth Holmes, the founder of Theranos. So we're seeing like a timely reminder, a sort of, if you will, a bit of a shot across the bows to the hubris of Silicon Valley, and a reminder that nobody is indestructible, and more importantly, bad doing bad stuff always catches up with you, and it seems like the bell is ringing loud and clear for a lot of founders at the moment.
Yeah, and in the case of Theranos, it's really just, they had big dreams and they lied to achieve those dreams, and
Totally.
now they're paying for it.
Totally. And can you believe that the people that Theranos conned, like, do you realize they had Henry Kissinger on the board of directors for that company?
Wow.
And this stellar heavyweight crew. But you know what the crazy thing is? None of them checked to see if the promises of the founder and of the company were actually true. So talk about a lesson in board governance, like keep an eye on the shop. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think when the industry's so frothy, like it has been for the past 10 or so years, there's going to be stories like this. It just happens.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, we got a ton of other news that's been happening in the world. Before we get to our thoughts on our live broadcast, I'm just cranking up the Moonshots Twitter stream, and I obviously see that we're broadcasting live.
The craziest one that you shared, Mike, was Jeff Bezos walking his robot dog. I just love that.
What an image. I mean, this is like, this guy was a geeky bookstore seller of fine books, and he's walking out there, and what's the character's name? The Iron Man guy. What's his name?
Tony Stark.
This is so Tony Stark right here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, there he is. He's got the sunglasses on and cool as a cucumber, walking down the street with this very advanced robotic dog, which was made by Boston Dynamics, very famous robotics company, for the Mars 2018 conference. What a cool photo. I mean, it's like he's got player written all over him, or maybe it's just $100 billion. Maybe that's all it says.
Yeah, and that's not all he's been up to. To continue, his theme of really educating not only the Amazon workforce but the greater community. He's donated, I believe, $33 million to a fund to help dreamers here in the States get to college. So it's not all fun and games and robots for Jeff.
Sure, and that's a really good point. And I think it's also, Chad, like, it's a little bit of a contrast to maybe some of the dire straits of the Uber, Facebook, Theranos thing, because let's be open about it. Amazon has been really criticized by some of the working conditions for employees in the factory. And maybe it's still not perfect, but at least he is investing time, money, and effort into educating folks. We mentioned on the Bezos show, he has a whole program that is designed for when factory employees and workshop and all the people working in the distribution centers that they can actually come in, get an education, get degrees, get certificates, and actually get new jobs, whether it's inside or outside of Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to give it to him, like at least he's starting to address some of the system issues that Amazon may have with how it treats employees.
Yeah, I think time will tell whether that's the best way to approach those kinds of issues and problems or not. While many wealthy billionaires have the best of intentions, I think sometimes their approaches are a little misinformed, of the real world.
Right.
So, we'll have to see. We'll have to see
Yeah.
how well it goes.
True. I'm totally with you. Talking about some other crazy tech stuff. Now, this is pure speculation, Chad, but we shared this other tweet on our Twitter feed, which you can get at twitter.com/moonshotsio. And this was the rumor. I mean, talk about inspiring, that there are rumors that Airbnb is looking into starting an airline. Can you imagine?
Not really, which is the exciting part.
Yeah. So, how do you think they would what would they fix in the airline experience? If we did a great show on Joe Gebbia, which you can grab from all the usual places. But what do you think Joe would attack first? What's the biggest friction in your airline traveling experience?
I don't know. There's so many. Honestly, for me, just getting to the airport is one of the hardest things here in New York City. It's
Oh my
so
gosh.
stressful.
It is. And the thing about New York is it's like if your flight is anywhere near a peak hour in the morning or late afternoon, your travel time more than doubles. It's ridiculous. Like if you have, like, the worst news is if you look at your ticket and it says 5 o'clock departure, because you're like,
Yeah, or 9 a.m. departure.
yeah, just because you're like, if I want to leave at 5, and if it's, let's say it's just within the US, you'd probably say worst I could get there is 3:30. If I want to get there at 3:30, probably need to leave no later than 2. Because that massive highway that goes out to JFK, sometimes that's just at a standstill. It's like
Well,
when all
there's
those.
many highways that go to JFK, and they're all at standstills.
Oh gosh, I have so many memories of that.
I would encourage everyone to check out Brian Chesky's original tweet where he asked if you could wave a magic wand and have the perfect flying experience. What would it be? Because there's some really interesting responses. But the thing that I'm taking away from this is they have a seed of an idea, and hey, what if we did an airline? But they're going to the customer's problem immediately. They're not like designing this thing and unveiling it of like, oh, Airbnb's doing an airline. They're actually soliciting people's ideas and hopefully, use that as a starting point for how they're going to test this idea. And it's right in line with exactly what we learned in the Joe Gebbia show. Everything that he was talking about was get in front of customers, ask them questions, and learn as much as you can from them.
Totally. I mean, I think it's a really exciting idea. So, lots of tough news, lots of good news in the last week or two in the innovation and design thinking world, which is so cool. I mean, can you believe, man, how lucky are we? We do this show, and it's literally, there is so much happening at the moment for us to talk about. That's why we're now going to do the briefing show weekly. There's just so much news to get out of there. Don't you find it exciting? Like, there's just a ton happening.
Yeah. And it's just interesting to me, I say we've only done, 25 shows, but everyone that we've profiled seems to be coming up in the news pretty much every week. And it just goes to show, how alive the world of innovation and entrepreneurship is. And yeah, I'm just really excited to keep producing this show as well as the podcast and hopefully many more live shows as well. So what did we do just 1 week ago?
Oh yeah, talk about times are busy. So we had a fabulous show in Bucharest. I mean, we loved doing Amsterdam, and that inspired us to do another show in Bucharest. And boy, We had four entrepreneurs, and this, it was also great because we learned so much from them. But it was your first time in Bucharest, and one of the first films you studied at film school was the documentary on the revolution in Bucharest.
Yeah, and I
What did it?
stood in Revolution Square. Yeah, it was really amazing. Uh, as an American, I definitely have an American interested in history, world history. I have a fascination with former communist countries and communism and the Cold War.
Right.
And this was my first time going to post-communist country. Aside from the city of Berlin, which is another just fascinating experience. A city that was literally surrounded by a country, on the other side of the wall, literally.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it was a really fun experience, and I want to give a warm-hearted shout out to Bucharest. Mulțumesc, Bucharest.
So good, man.
Thank
You're
you,
totally.
thank you, Bucharest.
When are you going to admit you're half Romanian, dude? You just drop all this Eastern European languages like second nature. But what was the big theme for you, Chad? Like what was the takeout? You got to meet a bunch of people. It's a great show, huge audience. What was the big takeaway? Like, what's the flavor of innovation in Bucharest?
It was just exciting for me to see such a vibrant innovation community, halfway across the world.
Right.
It tells me that, it's not just here in New York and in San Francisco and in Sydney and London that things are really happening.
Yeah.
And right out the gate, with our first guest, Elena Kushtoyu, I think
So
I said
good.
that right. She comes and hits us with, don't give up, don't ever give up, keep pushing through all the hard times, and you'll make it work. And the audience was kind of rapt, I think, for the whole first segment with her, because it really resonated.
It did, and she led strong. And I thought that her big theme of just not giving up was very powerful. But wasn't it really interesting that the turning point for her first company that she founded was actually the 2008 financial crisis? Meant that all of the marketplace was looking for way more affordable solutions. And that was the turning point for the success of the company, that they had come into this voice over IP market. And what ignited their business was actual adversity for the larger business community, for the economy. That was the changing point. And her point was, like, they started 6 years before that, and they literally were just surviving, and then boom, it took off.
Yeah, and thankfully they had, another line of business that could sustain them through that. But
Right.
like, their innovation, she said, kind of came too early, and they had to wait for the market to catch up. But then when it did, they made it successful.
Yeah, yeah. And then we got hit by one of the most amazing guests we've ever had on the show, Sebastian Bulduja. And the man who seems like, I think maybe he's Tony Stark. What do you think?
Yeah, he's done quite a bit, studied, across the globe, and worked for the UN and the World Bank. And just super inspiring, because not only is he getting involved in the world of entrepreneurship and connecting startups with the funding that they need, he's also civically engaged and is calling upon all Romanians to get involved and vote, and create the change that they want there.
Yeah, his idea of Just Do It was very inspiring, and a lot of positive feedback about him. But it didn't just stop there. Then we had Magda Ropotan. What was your takeout on this jet-setting global HR innovation design thinking guru? She had a lot of great thoughts. What was your favorite for her?
Well, my favorite one from her was the phrase "design your life," and I know she's kind of borrowing that phrase, but it was just a fascinating concept for me.
Yes.
And to hear her that she's done this with clients and with people, that kind of intentionality around life, I think, is really inspiring. And Also kind of like, whimsical. It's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
design your life.
Yeah, yeah, and what an interesting cross theme. I don't know if you remember from the live Amsterdam show that Johan van Mill talked about designing his life. He took design thinking practices into his life, where he was trying to propose to his wife, "Hey, let's move out of the city. Let's go into the country." And she's like, "No way." So then they actually prototyped the experience, and then after a year or two of trying all these different Airbnb experiences, they actually found something that the whole family loved, and he designed his life. So it's amazing
Hmm.
that we're in two different parts of the world and these themes are interconnecting. Um, that was really cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And we can't forget our final guest,
Ah,
Iwan
yes.
Jakob from Qualitans, uh, who kind of dropped the bombshell of risk isn't what we think it is.
Yeah.
And, the bad things in life aren't really as bad as we think they are. And so, why not stick your neck out there and take that risk and reap the reward?
Yeah, it was the perfect way to end this show that seemed to be themed around inner strength, resilience, keeping up the good fight, which is something that we see in the show all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Innovation is not for the faint-hearted. It's really for the brave. Um, and it was really wonderful. Now, do you want to share with us like what's the publishing plan? Because we mentioned we're going to make a few podcasts from the different interviews. What's the plan that everyone can look forward to in terms of the shows we want to release from Bucharest?
So I believe we're just going to go in the order in which we spoke to them,
Yeah, cool.
and I think we're going to switch to a weekly publish for that. So I believe starting, let's see, in about 2 weeks, we'll drop the first episode with Elena Castoriou, Don't Give Up. And then week after, we'll hear from Sebastian Borduja and how we should just do it.
Big time.
Week after that, Magda Ropotan with Design Your Life. And to round out our month of learnings from Romania, Iwan Jakob with Risk is Not What You Think It Is. So, yeah, we've got some really great shows from the Romanian innovators and entrepreneurs to inspire the rest of us around the world and maybe step up our game a little bit. It's really happening there in Bucharest.
Holy smoke, it is. Holy smoke. But it's also happening here in Sydney. I wanted to share with you, Chad, and all the listeners. This is the book, A Thousand Little Light Bulbs. And you'll remember we had Simon Banks on the show. Do you remember which episode we did with Simon?
That would
Let's
be
just
Ed Catmull from
very good.
Pixar.
Yeah, and this is his book. So last night in Sydney, I was at a very cool bookstore
Where can I get a
downtown.
copy?
Dude, well, actually, now you're catching me out. I assume it's on Amazon. He's got a very uh, heavyweight publisher type. So this is the real deal. Let's have a look here. It's by.
Oh,
Let's have a
yeah.
look
Here
here.
we go.
You got it?
Paperback. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got an ISBN and the whole lot. So we'll put that in the show notes. This was great. So we had a big crowd, lots of people into creativity and innovation, and creativity is alive and well in here in Sydney, Australia. So that was fun. That was last night. And talking about the future, we got so many goodies coming up. What's next on our horizon for all our different shows, Chad?
Well, it sounds like you have the list up, Mike. I don't, so I'll let you use.
Okay. So we've just put Zuckerberg live, and with our timing being so immense, do you remember? We actually will have our next show will be none other than Sheryl Sandberg.
Yep.
So this is really, again, how good is our timing, man?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But we've got some fun ideas for future shows as well. Bringing on some new guests, another Aussie.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna have the Aussie flavor. So we're gonna have Brendan Yell join us on the show, who is a famous entrepreneur and startup guy, creative guy. He's been in the music industry, And we're going to do a profile on a very famous Australian startup called Canva and the founder, Melanie Perkins. So he's going to join us to deconstruct what we can learn from them. And following that, we've got another dear friend of the show, great fans and great supporter. Patrick Hanlon's going to join us for a very interesting deep dive into one of the most, I don't know, contrarian brands on the planet. I mean, these guys just do it their own way. Patagonia as a brand, just it stands out as a beacon to me, Chad.
Yeah, I can't speak highly enough for what they're doing.
Yeah, they have this crazy thing where they've had ad campaigns where they say, don't buy a jacket from us this year. Come to our portable repair bus and we'll just fix up your old Patagonia jacket for free.
Yeah.
So you can get more wear out of it. It's so non-consumerist, consumerist. It's just self-confidence. They have this strong belief. Talk about being a mission-driven company. I don't know if you can get more mission-driven than Patagonia.
Yeah, the name of the book that he wrote is Let My People Go Surfing.
There you go. Sounds all right to me. Sounds all right to me. Although I'm a hopeless surfer. I mean, that's never worked for me. In Australia, I'm what we call a body basher. I just get out there and catch waves. No boards. What are you, Chad? Have you ever jumped on?
I've never tried. Nope, never tried.
Okay. So when you come to do our first Australian live show, should we both go and get surfing lessons?
I think that sounds like a fantastic idea.
Hey, can you imagine Bondi Beach? So we'll have to make sure it's in the summer, though. So maybe sort of October, November.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Oh, there you go. We're planning the year already. Sunshine, surfing, and a little bit of podcasting.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone, for watching this Moonshots briefing. You can expect each week around this time, plus or minus 15-20 minutes, depending on how long it takes Mike and I to get our stuff organized. And,
get the gremlins. We got to get the gremlins out of the system, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's been fun doing the live broadcasts and just learning the technology. You know, I think it's really encouraging to see the growth of our audience on different platforms like Periscope and Facebook. Thank you everyone for exploring these new mediums and channels with us. But
Absolutely.
You will always be getting new episodes of the podcast dropping into your podcast feeds. So be on the lookout for the next episode of Sheryl Sandberg, and then our Live from Bucharest shows to drop after that.
Lots of good stuff to come. All right, Chad, listen, thank you so much for jumping on and chatting. I know you've got a ton going on. I'm still recovering from a massive book launch. And can't wait to put out more shows on the podcast feed. And look, I'll see you next week for Moonshots briefings. And if you want anything more, if our listeners want to get any information, the books, the links, the shows, just head to moonshots.io where they'll find absolutely everything. All right, Chad, enjoy the rest of your evening in New York. I feel like you'll be editing into the wee hours of the night.
Yeah, and writing and brainstorming. got a lot going on this week.
Good man, good man. Well, listen, thanks for spending the time together again here on the Moonshots live briefings. So that's a wrap for now. Thanks, everyone, and take care, Chad.
Cheers, Mike.
See you, mate. Bye-bye.